Hi, my name is Mark Ventura. Today we're going to talk about the two slip-ups that Forrest made that led Jack straight to the treasure. The first slip-up is in the Flywater chapter of The Thrill of the Chase. Many people believe that this chapter is where Forrest Fenn reflected on his life and talked about dying when he said things like, "My tackle box is closed." Jack figured out where Forrest buried the treasures where he wanted to die. He also said he searched for a lot of the original source materials for the different chapters in The Thrill of the Chase, so I thought this might be a good place to look for the slip-up. I searched for the original source material for the Flywater chapter and I found it, an article called Memories of the Past Enrich Our Present that Forrest wrote back in 2008. And it turns out he did remove 3 words from that article, "on the fire hole," which does not appear in the Flywater chapter. That is certainly a slip-up, and at the same time, he added a new sentence prior to that where he talks about the Madison River. Now, I don't think Forrest is trying to trick us. I just think he's trying to leave some subtle hints in his book to help treasure hunters. But this slip-up helped Jack find the treasure. So now Jack knew the treasure was somewhere along the Madison River, but he needed another slip-up to help narrow down the search area. Well, the second slip-up happened when Forrest was describing in an interview the difference between clues in a poem and subtle hints in the book The Thrill of the Chase. His advice is always the same. Read the book, then read the poem, and then go back and read the book more carefully, reading every sentence. This great video by the people at Mysterious Writings has 15 or so such famous quotes. But Fenn never gives any specific examples of what a subtle hint could be. That is until the one time when he finally slipped up. Jack himself posted this interview video on his YouTube page. Now keep in mind he only has 2 videos, so it must be important. This was an interview that Forrest had done with New Mexico True Stories back in 2015. Jack was very interested in getting his hands on this video because he heard Forrest had said something that he wished he hadn't said. So 35 minutes into the interview, Forrest apologizes for saying, "I really haven't given you anything." Then he starts going into his talk about the difference between clues and subtle hints. In around 41 minutes, he slips up finally and says that pictures or drawings can be subtle hints. Not even the people at Mysterious Writings caught this slip up. And by 44 minutes, he's saying, "One thing I told you, I wish I did not. I've already said too much." So how did that slip up, pictures and drawings, help Jack? Well, remember the Madison River is 181 miles long. So if you look at the pictures in The Thrill of the Chase, they all have one thing in common. 9 holes, 7-mile bridge, the water hole. They're all within Yellowstone Park. So this is the aha moment Jack talked about. He now knows that the treasure is on the Madison River within Yellowstone Park. So now that we know that the treasure is on the Madison River within Yellowstone, so where would warm water halt? Where else? The Madison River Confluence, which happens to be the most popular theory for treasure hunters. Now, there's a canyon on each of these rivers, the 2 warm rivers, the Firehole and the Gibbon River, which halt and then form the cold Madison River. But if you really listen to this passage, it has flow to it. Begin it where the warm waters halt and then take it in the canyon down. So if we use our imagination, it is actually the Madison River. And in order to take it in the canyon down, we have to go downstream. So Forrest has said that lots of people solve the first 2 clues and then struggle when they get to clues 3 through 9. We know people have been solving the first 2 clues since 2012. So this is where it's going to get tricky. But Forrest gave us a clue in the preface of Too Far to Walk, and he said it doesn't take a genius to figure it out. So let's face it, it's 10 miles. Okay, so if we look at our river here, the first thing that comes up is 9-mile hole. Well, that's not too far in. It's about 3 miles from where warm waters halt, and it's just not far enough. So I mean, I don't believe Forrest is trying to mislead us. So it's just too close. That one's just not going to happen. And then there's the 7-mile bridge with a few miles further down. But I don't like this spot because you can put in on either side of the river, and there's a man-made trail in the area where the treasure would be. And Forrest said no one's going to stumble across it. So if we look further down the river, all the other interesting points are outside of Wyoming, like Barnes Hole and Baker Hole. So we're going to try to do something different here. So we're going to use the unintended clue in the preface to help us solve this, which I believe is river distance, which is very specific. So we're going to go exactly 10 miles of river distance and just see where it takes us. And it actually takes us right to the center of a put-in along the Madison River. So is this spot important? At first it looks like just a random spot along the Madison River, but looking at maps of fishing holes, you realize that it's just downstream or below Cable Car Run fishing hole, which is a very popular fishing hole today. It's also further downstream from the Long Riffle, a place that people know that Forrest Fenn used to like to fish. Well, at the Long Riffle, the Madison River is only a few inches deep, but back at Cable Car Run, you've got some deep fishing water, so that is going to be our home of brown. Okay, so let's just solve clues 5 to 8. We've done this so many times. So no place for the meek, the Madison River, it's dangerous, you can drown, people died there. That's why Forrest said to wear a personal flotation device and check with rangers on conditions. The end is drawing nigh, it's drawing near, it's on the left. There's no paddle up your creek. There's no boats allowed in the Madison River. Just heavy loads and water high, heavy loads of fish, and water high at this fishing hole. We can narrow down our search area using the famous 500, 200, 50-foot rule. Forrest said that many people have come within 500 feet of the treasure. Some people have come within 200 feet, and a few people may have come within 50 feet of the treasure. So in this example, the people who had come within 500 feet were simply driving down the highway on their way to other blazes like Barnes Hole and Baker's Hole. The people that had come within 200 feet were brave enough to cross the Madison River and walk along the opposite bank looking for blazes. Now that can only be true in my picture here when the area is marked in yellow. Otherwise, the road moves too far away to the left and right. And that area is just smaller than the size of a football field, which is exactly the way Jack described it. Now let's not forget about the 50-foot rule. Now the treasure is 200 feet from the opposite bank, but it's only 150 feet to the edge of the trees. So if anyone told Forrest that they crossed the Madison River and were walking along the edge of the trees looking for blazes, those few people would have been 50 feet from the treasure. So that brings us to the last clue, which we're not going to be able to solve because Jack said the blaze was either damaged or destroyed. But I believe it was something as simple as a carving on the side of the tree, maybe even done by his father. And that would explain why it took Jack 25 more days to find the blaze after coming within 6 feet. It also explains the circular shape when looking down. Unlike many other trees, it makes a perfect circle. Many pine trees live to be 100 years old, where a few of them actually live to be 1,000 years old. That would explain Forrest's comments about possible geographical changes. So there lied the treasure, under a tree on the Madison River, in some sort of natural nook, big enough to hide the family fishing gear and also big enough for Forrest to crawl right in there next to the treasure. Thanks, and I hope you enjoyed the video.